Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to WPQuickies, WordPress tips and tricks in 30 minutes or less. Today's topic, we're going to be talking about making WordPress go faster, and I always love doing that topic. I think it's a great one because there's so many different components that make up a WordPress website. So please say hi in the comments and to let me know who's here and who's watching. That would be great. I'll just give everyone a couple of minutes just to come in and say hi, grab their cup of tea and their lunch, and then we'll dig into this. So I've covered this topic a few times in the WordPress meetups. So it's quite a popular one, especially now that Google wants to see all websites go faster. Hi, Alan. Nice to have you on board again. Alan's one of our regulars, along with Mr. Meowpuss. Yep, I'm doing very well. Thanks, Daniel. The cold is all gone, which is great. So I hope you guys are all keeping safe and well. Paul, hi, Paul. Again, a regular face. Ethan, Julia, hi. Morris. Oh, John. Hey, John. I've not seen or talked to you for many moons. Nice to have you on board, John. And hello, and Clinton. Hi to you all. Thanks so much for taking the time to join me today. So I think we've got some good amount of viewers on YouTube just now. So let me just dive into this one. So before we start, just remember to hit the subscribe and the bell, and you'll get notified each time we go online, so you don't miss out. Okay, so here we go. Let's go straight into it. So you'll probably realize from the first few slides that we don't actually talk about WordPress too much until we get later on in the show. So let's look at probably the most obvious one, I think, from looking at WordPress to go faster, and that is web hosting. Particularly choosing a high-performant web host, I think, is the ultimate key in making your website go faster. You can have a WordPress site that runs like a dog, and if you put it on a really good web host, then it'll run slightly better. So choosing the high-performant web host is certainly number one on my list if I'm doing a WordPress website audit for a client. So really, when you're looking at WordPress hosts, there are several different options you can think about. The first and the most common when you think about hosting a website is usually shared hosting, like the traditional shared hosting. So you're not going to get the most performance out of that because you've got all these other websites crammed into this one server, and they're all vying for that same physical server resource. So shared hosting is never going to give you the best performance when you're choosing a web host. I guess the next one up from that is going to be DIY, do-it-yourself VPS machines or virtual private servers. Now, you can get these really cheaply. So there's a company called DigitalOcean. They do droplets for like $5 US a month. So you can get a very performant server from them. You throw more CPU and RAM at it, and you will get quite a speedy performance. The downside to that is you really need to have a lot of time and skills in order to support and update not just your website, but the server as well. So there's no web hosting company involved. It's all do-it-yourself stuff. So yes, you'll get a high-performing website if you run your own DIY VPS. I guess the next step up from that is, I'll get round to some questions in a minute, guys. The next step up to DIY VPS would be, I think, DIY cloud hosting. So something like Google's cloud hosting. You could host your website on there, and you'll get a very, very speedy network and response from that. However, again, it's the same issue with the VPS, is you've got to have the skills and time and effort and management to manage that infrastructure. So the server and the RAM and the CPU and all the software that goes onto it as well. So again, you're going to get like a performant website, but maybe, you know, the downside is your time it's going to take to actually manage that infrastructure. So the next step for a web host would be thinking about a WordPress managed hosting system. Now that's going to give you a good level of performance because they've tailored their system specifically to make WordPress go fast. And you get the benefit of them managing that infrastructure as well. So you don't have to spend that time upgrading servers and plugging holes and locking down port numbers and doing malware scans and all that sort of stuff. And that's all done for you. And that's included in the price of the package, the yearly cost. So, I mean, there's many WordPress managed host companies out there. The couple that spring to mind are WP Engine and Kinsta. Their whole business model is around WordPress. So their whole companies are geared towards hosting the WordPress solutions. But I mean, there's other companies out there that offer a WordPress managed package as well. So for example, Kinetics here in Australia with data centers here in Sydney, they offer WordPress managed hosting, but as well SiteGround does it as well. And SiteGround, they're based in the US and they offer a managed hosting package as well. So those two companies, while they're companies that are not WordPress specific, you know, they have infrastructure that enables them to scale their WordPress website hosting to get good performance. So yeah, top of my list is to choose a high performing web host. So maybe ditch the shared hosting that you're on and go for like maybe a VPS if you've got that time. Cloud hosting would be fantastic, or maybe think about going for a WordPress managed host. You just give that extra bit of performance in how they manage that. A few other highs. We've got Circa, Haley, hi, Joey, good to see you again. Richard, hello, John, Ethan, and I think there was a question. There we go. What is your benchmark for high performance? Well, you can use things like pingdom.com or Google speed page loading, but really you're looking for a web page to load in about under 2 or 3 seconds. 3 seconds is kind of pushing it. Maybe under 2 seconds is pretty fast. Otherwise, Google's going to start kind of ranking you a little bit lower because other ones are speedier. So yeah, so 2 to 3 seconds would be reasonable. Less than that would be good. Okay, not sure what that's. Okay, let's move on. So that was number 1, web host, very important. The next thing to look at if you want to increase speed is to look at where the actual server location is. So the time it takes for a server to communicate and send information to a client browser, well, that's called latency. And it should be obvious that the further away the physical location of the server is from the client's location, then the longer it's going to take to transfer that data between the two. So, okay, it might just be milliseconds, but when you have hundreds of individual GET requests to render one single WordPress page, then that's going to add up to seconds, and seconds are noticeable. So it does make a huge difference. So if you have the option from your web host provider, choose a data center that is closest to where your primary target audience is. So a couple of questions here. SiteGround answers the phone as opposed to my old hosting company. Yeah, so support is definitely a key. If you're looking, we're focusing on performance here, but of course you need to take lots of other things into consideration. So yeah, support. It's no good if you've got a fast web host and it crashes and nobody's there to answer that question if they're based in some other country. So yeah, good point. John, Fiona, so is that list in order of increased performance? Slightly. Fiona, I think these are essentials that you should cover to have a broad increase in speed in your website. So they're not really in any particular order, but I would say that choosing the web host, a really speedy web host, if you just do that one thing, then you're going to see a good performance increase on its own. So no, they're not in any particular order, Fiona, but thanks for asking. Okay, next on the list, DNS performance. Notice we haven't got to WordPress yet. Okay, so every domain, it needs a DNS lookup to get that the domain name, the readable name, translated to the IP address, which is the machine number and location. And surprise, surprise, and this might be a surprise to some, not all DNS servers are equal. So long story short, on October the 21st, 2016, there was a massive distributed denial of service, DDoS attack on a popular DNS provider called Dyn, D-Y-N. In fact, I'm going to copy. I've got all the links for all this talk here. So rather than paste them individually, I'm just going to post them all here to you guys. And the very top one on that list is a Wikipedia article on that particular attack. So what happened was there was an attack on the Dyn DNS servers, and that brought down their name servers. And the name servers are what we call the DNS lookup servers. And long story short, all the premium brands at that time who were using Dyn, such as Twitter, PayPal, Amazon, CNN, BBC, Verizon, like huge, massive brands, they were basically left with their customers had no way to access their websites and services, because when a client browser went to look up, their domain name, it hit the name server, which wasn't responding. So that's it. They got a timeout problem. So because of that, what happened was that some companies decided to create a secondary failover DNS system of their own as a backup. And these are now known as a premium DNS service. So for example, Amazon, they've got their premium DNS is called Route 53. I mean, amongst other premium DNS services, it's super fast compared with these free or single DNS providers that don't have a failover. So I've got a couple of slides next. It just shows you some of the differences between free DNS, which is like a single DNS, and a premium DNS. So here we've got Namecheap. So a lot of people register, and I do as well, register domain names through Namecheap. So this is some of their DNS milliseconds in order to response. So you can see here on the screen we have, hopefully you'll be able to see that, it's a bit small. And they've got two DNS servers, so two lookup servers, and they're both registered on register-servers.com. And you can see in the third column here, the average milliseconds, that's the average time it takes for that DNS server to respond. So when you're typing in something, if you've got a DNS registered on Namecheap, if you're typing that website's domain name, it then goes to the Namecheap DNS servers, those two servers there, and it'll ask that DNS server, what's the IP address for this domain? So it's going to take 60 milliseconds, 70 milliseconds for that Namecheap DNS server to then reply and say, here's the IP address for that domain name. So that is pretty slow. And notice as well, they're on the same domain, so there's no failover. So if that domain name goes down, if that server goes down, then there's no backup for that. That's it. Both servers are down and nobody will be able to get to your domain name, to your website, sorry. Now let's have a look at the premium DNS. So here we've got Amazon, Route 53. I know it's really small, guys. I'm really sorry for that. I'll make these available on the website later on. Let's see, make that a little bit bigger. It doesn't really make much difference. But I'll tell you what it is. So the DNS in Amazon, they have 1, 2, 3, 4 different failovers. So notice that a .org, a .com, a .co.uk, and a .net as well. So 4 different failover DNS. The first one here, it's coming back as, well, even I can't see that, 16 milliseconds. So that's 16 milliseconds compared to 60, 70 milliseconds from Namecheap. So that's a huge difference. Just in that one thing, just choosing a different DNS provider. The second one here is got 79, which is not so good. But then the next one here is 19, and the next one is 20 milliseconds, I think. So absolute huge performance. You're basically cutting that time down by about 500% just by going for a premium DNS service. Okay, so yeah, so DNS, definitely something to look at. Another step in making your website go a little bit faster. Let's see. Okay, next on the list is a CDN. So a CDN is a content delivery network. Basically, what it does is it's a fantastic way of speeding up your website. So a CDN caches copies of already visited pages from your website to multiple servers around the globe. And what that means is when the next person goes to look at that page, if it's got a cached copy in a nearby server, it sends that to the client. And that, again, reduces the latency time, the time between the server and client, therefore increasing the apparent speed of the website. So, of course, CDNs aren't perfect, and there are certain areas of our website that can't be cached, such as shopping carts, checkouts, and of course gated content like membership sites. Now, some of the popular CDNs, one popular CDN that I use for some of my clients and some of my sites is Cloudflare. It offers both free and premium plans, but you can do a lot on the free plan itself. And an advantage of Cloudflare is that it's also integrated into cPanel and Plesk. So there's a little button down there, a little icon, that allows you to set it up and get it integrated into your website really quickly and really easily. So it's really easy to set up and manage. And with Cloudflare, you actually get the benefit of using their lightning fast DNS premium service as well. So here, a similar graphic here, just showing, look at the Cloudflare DNS response, 5 and 3 milliseconds. That is super fast compared with Namecheap at 60 milliseconds. So even this one thing, even just going using Cloudflare and then getting on their premium DNS, you're shaving 500–600% off the time to first byte, the time that the server responds to say, here's the address of the website, go and visit that. And there is a service out there, and it's in the list of links. It's called DNS Perf. And if you go to that website, DNS Perf, if you put in your domain name provider, so the company you've registered your domain name with, it will actually tell you the millisecond response time that your service is, and it'll show you like the top 20 as well, and then where your DNS service is in comparison with the list. Joe, as in where you buy domain name from and thus the DNS. Joe, did you ask another question up there? Okay. Well, I do use Namecheap for a lot, but I use some of the Australian networks as well. I'll get a list for you. I'll put that in at the end, but I want to keep going with this because I've got a lot to cover within a short time. Next. Okay. Caching. So caching, similar. Well, we kind of covered it a little bit with CDN, Cloudflare. That's basically what it does. It's cache copy. But rather than server-based, you can also do some caching on your WordPress website. So we're actually starting to get into WordPress just now, which is good. So rendering a page, that's displaying a page in the web browser. It takes a lot of time and effort on the server part. The server has to compile all the PHP and combine all the file assets like images, CSS, and JavaScript into HTML. And HTML is really the only language that the web browser can understand. So hopefully the web host that you choose, they've got lots of hardware caching going on at the hosting company level, but you can always improve your site speed with a caching plugin. Now, there's several caching plugins out there. There's W3 Total Cache, which is very good. There's also WP Rocket. So WP Rocket, again, it's a premium plugin, so you have to pay for it. I've not used it personally, but everyone who has used it thinks it's absolutely fantastic. So definitely give those a go and try a caching plugin and see if that makes a difference. It should make a big difference on your website just by doing that. Maurice, does the free Cloudflare give you the premium DNS? I don't think it does. I think that's an additional service that you have to pay for, Maurice. But on the whole, the Cloudflare DNS name servers are pretty fast anyway, even if you're not on the premium. So if you go to that link for DNS Perf, if you just look at the homepage there, where it's got the DNS timings. It shows you like the top 10, and I think Cloudflare's up there in like 1, 2, or 3 anyway. So even if you're not on their premium DNS, they're pretty super fast anyway. Next is optimizing your database. Now that sounds a bit scary, and I guess it can be for some, but there's a lot of stuff you can do outside your actual physical WordPress website to make things go a little bit faster. So database table engine. Have I got a graphic for this? I think I do. No, I don't. Okay. So you can make sure that all your database tables are using something called InnoDB, which is a lot faster than the older MyISAM. I'm sorry I don't have a graphic for that. But basically, if you open up your database in PHP MyAdmin, which is a database management tool, and it's usually available on Plesk and on cPanel, if you open the database, you'll be able to see all the tables in the database. And along one column, it shows you what type of table it is. Now, in the old days, they used to use something called MyISAM. I'll type that in the comment here, MyISAM. So that's the old database format. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, but the newer one to use is InnoDB. So you can look down the list of your tables, and if any of them say InnoDB, then you can use a couple of plugins, or you can use PHP MyAdmin to actually change those from MyISAM to InnoDB. And there's a couple of links in those links that I sent you. One is an article from Kinsta that shows you how to use PHP MyAdmin just to change those database tables to InnoDB. And for anyone who's techie out there, there's an article about how to use WP CLI just to change those. So just changing those over will mean your database can increase its speed. Okay. I thought I had slides for those. Obviously not. I'm really sorry. Transients. Transients are caches that are kept in the WP options table. They're meant to clean themselves, but sometimes they don't. So one thing you can do is delete those. There's a plugin called Transient Manager. And again, the link should be in the list that I posted earlier on. The Transient Manager just allows you to go into Tools in the admin and then just delete all the transients. It clears them out. And transients can hog a huge amount of database space. So if you get rid of database space, it always means that running the database queries are a lot quicker. Another popular thing is to delete and limit post revisions. Let me just check. I thought I had. Maybe I've just got things out of order. No, I haven't. Okay, sorry. I thought I had all these slides for it, but I don't. So yeah, delete and limit post revisions. Now, by default, WordPress saves an unlimited number of revisions to a post. So each time you save, it will save a copy of that in the database. And, going over months and years, that can add up to an awful lot of database space. And nobody really needs to take up humongous amounts of database space. So you can delete them using a plugin called WP-sweep. And the link, again, is in the list of links I posted earlier. So you can do that, use that plugin, and it'll allow you to delete all those stuff, and you'll resave all that space in your database, which is great. Another alternative that you can do is you can actually, once you do that, you probably want to limit the amount of revisions that WordPress does. So open up your wp-config.php, which is the main configuration file in WordPress. And somewhere near the top, add something like this line I've put in the comments. So define wp_post_revisions and set it as 3, for example. And that's telling WordPress only to save 3 copies of each post in your website. Now, if you don't want any, and that's great, then you can add this line in the comments. So define WP post revisions and false. That means WordPress will just have the 1 copy that you work on for your post all the time. And doing that can save huge amounts in your database, which is always good for speeding things up. Definitely have a look into optimizing your database. Now, I know I do have a slide for this next one. So optimizing your images. Okay, so we're starting to get a little bit more WordPress related now. So obviously, the larger your images are, the longer it's going to take to download them from the server, and the slower your page is going to be to render, to be created, to show in the web browser. So I've got a quick summary for this. Basically, is don't muck around with WordPress image upload plugins or optimization plugins from that. Do all your optimizations on your local machine before uploading them, and then you just get rid of all that pain. So there's plenty of native PC apps and Mac apps for doing that, and to run single image optimization, or to run as a batch mode in a directory. So there's one called File Optimizer for PC, and there's Image Opt-in for the Mac. And the links are in that list of links that I posted. So what happens if you already have a lot of media up on your website? Well, you use cPanel or Plesk in the file manager, and just simply zip up your WP content uploads folder, then download it onto your local PC, unzip it, and then use one of these apps to run through all the images and compress them and optimize them. Zip it back up, upload it using File Manager to your web host, and unzip it there, overwriting all the files. So that's a great quick way of just optimizing all your images. You can reduce images from megabytes in size down to just a few kilobytes by reducing the quality from maybe high to medium, and it'll make a huge difference in your web page size. I've had clients uploading images that are 5,000 by 3,000, straight from their phone. So never a good idea. Always optimize your images on local. I'm going to speed up a little bit because it's almost past already. Sorry about that. Okay, another thing you can do is offload media. So if you've got any large media files like PDF, audio, or video, they should reside on cloud storage like Amazon S3 or Blackblaze B2, or vertical services like Vimeo for videos or SoundCloud for audio. Any reputable cloud service is going to be super fast, and your web server is not going to have to expend any resources other than a single get command to grab it down from the cloud host. So definitely offload all your big media, get it off your website so your web server doesn't have to bother about them at all. Another thing is offloading email. Again, I come across this many times where people have installed a newsletter plugin, or they have a subscriber list on their website. Now, that's great for the first 10, 15 people. But then as your subscriber list grows, then your server's taking more time to send out all these emails. And you're basically turning your web server into an email server. So please don't do that. Sending out emails, it's a very costly resource, especially if your email list is large. And it can also get your website IP server blacklisted, the address blacklisted as well. So please use an emailer service like SendGrid or Mailgun. And make sure your subscriber campaigns are run in an email system like ActiveCampaign, Drip, or MailChimp. So completely offload that from your website, and your web server will run a lot better. Just a couple of, I'll get to some of the images at the end, so we're almost there, almost at the end. Pingbacks and trackbacks. Who uses that anymore? Do you even know what they are? Well, this is from the old days of WordPress being a blog. So you get notified, your website would get notified if someone linked to some of your content. I don't think anyone really bothers about that anymore. So yeah, I would just suggest disabling it, because it does take a little bit of server resource. If you've got a busy blog with lots of people linking, you don't want the web server to constantly be adding stuff from other websites. So just let Google Analytics take care of all that stuff. So quickly just go into the settings discussion and just make sure that checkbox is unchecked, and then you're saving that little bit of time with your server not having to deal with pingbacks and trackbacks. Okay, now we're getting down to the WordPress nitty-gritty. So WordPress theme. So of course, your functions are built into a theme, and these functions can have an impact on speed. So themes that offer hundreds of features, for example, tend to load many CSS files and JavaScript files, as well as external services like Google Fonts, for example. And all this is going to slow down the render, the creation of your web pages, because it's having to suck in all this extra stuff. So the best themes that you can choose are those that have been custom built for your website using a lean theme. So you might not be able to pay for a designer or a developer. So there's 3 popular themes that are quite speedy that you might want to have a look at if you maybe want to rebrand or theme your website. One is GeneratePress, and that's like super quick. Another one is Ocean WP. It's not as quick as GeneratePress, but it does have lots of layouts and stuff in there. And again, it's generally a lot faster than most other themes. And Astra as well. Astra's pretty good. Astra's got a lot of stuff in it, so it does load external libraries and things, but it does allow you to enable and disable which modules it uses. So it's very good in that way. So you can make it lightweight and then just switch on the things that you need if you want to use, for example, Google Fonts, and just switch on that particular module. Now, a couple of those, Ocean WP and GeneratePress, now they do rely on using a page builder to create all those page layouts. And Page Builder, just a note on them, they can also make your pages go a little bit slower because they're loaded in lots of CSS and JavaScript files to support that Page Builder layout. However, there's always a compromise that you have to do. And the compromise is, okay, your web page might be a little bit slower, but look at the amount of time that you're saving and money as well, not having to go to a designer or a developer and being able to create all those beautiful page layouts yourself. So a couple of the most popular page builders are Beaver Builder and Elementor. They're really good and they're quite lean for what they do compared with some of the other page builders like Divi or WP Bakery. They're pretty heavy page builders. Okay, next one. Okay, I think this is the last one. So now we're talking about auditing your plugins. So please don't get hung up on the number of plugins you have. I always get asked how many plugins is too many. There's not a number for that. It's all about the quality and the functionality that a plugin does. So for example, are you just using one function of a plugin that offers hundreds of other stuff? Jetpack. So Jetpack is a common plugin that a lot of people use, and they might only use 1 or 2 features from it, but it's got all this stuff available and all that extra stuff. I'm not just going on to Jetpack, it's lots of other plugins as well. And all this other stuff can slow your site down because it's loading extra files and resources. So basically, have a look through your plugins. If there's a plugin that uses a whole heap of stuff and you only use maybe 1 or 2 things from it, then consider going out and looking for plugins that just do that 1 or 2 specific things and replace that huge plugin with just those 2 lean, neat plugins. So another question as well I get with this plugin audit is, how do you know which plugins are causing a performance issue? Well, the first thing you can do is go into the WordPress built-in health check system. So that's in your dashboard, go to Tools and Health Check, and that'll pop up some any issues that it finds if it's finding with PHP or memory issues or speed. So that's definitely the first place I would look. The second place I would use if you want to do this on the free, there's a plugin called Usage DD, and it's in the list of URLs I posted at the beginning of the talk here. And what that does is, have I got a, no, I don't have a slide for that. It just allows you to go through all the different resources and all the queries that all these plugins are doing. So you should be able to quickly see which plugins are taking the longest to load and the longest to do queries from. And then you can maybe have a consider whether you really need that plugin and replace it with something else. But really, the best and hands down way to audit your plugins is using something called New Relic. Now, it might not be available to everyone, and you might need to talk to your web host if you want to try using this. But New Relic, it's a server monitoring tool, and it has a WordPress module built into it, and it gives you granular specific data on how quickly and how slowly and how much resources are being used on your server. It's fantastic. I use it all the time. But I'm quite lucky because I use Kinsta and WP Engine, and they have New Relic installed or available for that. Otherwise, I guess licensing can be pretty expensive. So you can see here, there's on this visual here, So we've got New Relic running the WordPress module, and we can see it's actually telling you the top 5 plugins and themes and how much it's taken to load them in and to run. So, just using that, you can easily find, which plugins are a resource hog for your website, get rid of them and replace them with something else. Here's another graph for New Relic, and this one is more at a server level, so not WordPress server, and it's just telling you how much time PHP and MySQL and the or your external resources are taking, and that's a good first signal. If you don't know where to start, is to look at that, and you can see, well, is the PHP taking long? Is it the database that's taking long, or is it the fetching of external resources that's taking long? So definitely look into New Relic if you're really serious about streamlining your WordPress website. Lastly, the last one that you can use for free is a plugin called Query Monitor. And it doesn't specifically analyze plugins or web resources, but it looks at the queries that WordPress is doing, like the database queries. And sometimes they can take a long time to respond back, and that can slow down your web page. So again, using something like Query Monitor that can narrow you down into which plugin or which function is causing the issues, has been really, really slow. And you can maybe get back to the developer and ask them to hone that, or again, just try and replace the plugin or that particular functionality. So that's it, guys. I know I took a little bit longer than normal, 6 minutes over, but there was a lot there that I want to cover. So those are kind of my main tips on how to make WordPress go faster. So sure, there's many more that you could look at, but I think covering these fundamentals, and you're going to get your site running a lot faster than before. So let's look at a couple of questions. I'll go back to the questions, circle around for those. Let's see if I've got another page. Next one. Okay, we'll leave that up there just now. Okay, let's have a look. John's saying, is optimizing for video as well? That's a good question, John. I would say if you have the expertise to do that, then yeah, I would certainly go down that route. So there's a great tool for PC. I don't know if it's available for Mac. There's a great tool called Handbrake. Let's just see if I can post a URL for that. Here we go. So if you haven't heard of Handbrake, Handbrake takes videos, and you can basically choose the format, the size, and compression, and really shrink down videos to like from the original video it was. Being a WordCamp organizer, we do this sort of thing. So when we do the WordCamps, when we've got all the raw videos from the guys, they're usually in 4K or at least 1080p, and they are gigabytes in length. So what I usually do is I run them through Handbrake, reduce them down, and we can get them down to like under a gig, maybe like half a gig for that. So yeah, definitely try optimizing your videos before you upload them. That's a great idea, John. And Handbrake is probably the most popular tool to do that. But again, if you're using an external service, then it's like Vimeo, it's their servers that are going to do all the processing for the video, and not your web server if you offload that. Ethan, why not use image plugins? I guess my answer would be because it kind of makes you lazy. So if you upload an image optimizer like Image Opt-in plugin, or what's the other one? Not Scrunch. Anyway, I can't remember what it's called. Smush is a popular plugin. Then when you're uploading your 5,000 by 3,000 images straight from your camera, then the poor little server is having to run the plugin process that then is going through this humongous whopping image, and it's scaling it down, and it's trying all these different compression ratios, and that's your server doing all that stuff, and it's locking up your server resource. So just say you've got somebody on your shop that's trying to add stuff to your cart to checkout or something, and it's like you got this little spinner going around. They're like, I'm out of here. I'll go somewhere else. So anything you can do to offload big processing, and image optimization is very server intensive, then yeah, I would recommend not installing these image optimization plugins on the web server and just doing it at home on your computer before you upload it. Haley, what was the name of the program to use for already uploaded images? Okay, so let me grab that from the list here. Maybe I didn't put it on. That's probably why. Okay. I will get that for you in a second. Let me just go there. I thought I had that in the list, but obviously I don't. I do have it here. I've got links on my blog post. Okay, copy that link. Here's the first one. This is for PC. It's called File Optimizer. And that's from SourceForge, which is a reputable place to download stuff from. So it's File Optimizer. So you drag and drop files onto it. And you basically tell it, yeah, I want it to compress for medium or this percentage, this sort of quality. And it can do it for single images. And it can also do it for directories as well. So you can just say, all the stuff in this directory and recursively as well. Then please just go and chomp all these things and squish them down. And that's the Mac one there, image opt-in there. So again, it might take a while if you've got like a lot of images there to download it using the FTP and upload it back, but it's well worth it because if you're squashing megabytes worth of image files down to a few K, you're going to get a speedy response on the pages that use those images. Julia, I use contact form entries plugin. Would you recommend this to store contact form entries, or what process would you recommend to keep track of contact form entries? Okay, yep, so contact form 7, I think what you're talking about, Julia, and with a little add-on that allows you to save all the stuff to the database. But I mean, that's fine. If you're just storing a handful of stuff in the database, it's not going to make a huge difference. But if you're getting 10, 15, 20, 100 a week, and yeah, that's going to add up and it's going to increase your database. What I would always recommend is for things like contact forms, then just whack it up to your CRM. So if you can create there's lots of free CRMs out there. There's Mailchimp, and there's lots of plugins that allow you to connect things like Contact Form 7, Gravity Forms, Ninja Forms, and rather than store it natively on your PC, once somebody presses the submit form, then it uses the API just to put it up into your CRM, and that's offloading all that processing away from WordPress, and you're getting it in your CRM. So yeah, I would definitely advise people, rather than store contacts locally on your server, is to get a CRM, ActiveCampaign, Drip, Aweber, Mailchimp. There's heaps of stuff out there, and get it to send directly to there and do all your newsletters and campaigns within those services. Get it away from WordPress. Good question. Thanks, Julia. Ethan. So he thinks that image plugins made several versions of the image and served up the most appropriate one for each client. Okay. Not really. I guess there could be plugins to do that, Ethan, but the ones that I was talking about is images that compress images that you upload. So for example, plugin like Smush It, you can set a file size limit and a quality. And if you're crazy enough to upload a 5,000 by 3,000 image, then you've set like a maximum resolution, maybe 800 by 600 as your top res image. It'll then squash it down and just create like the one main image, and then it runs it through WordPress, and WordPress itself creates different sizes of images, and then it serves that to the different devices using something called source set, which is kind of a newish CSS element, I guess. So it's not usually those plugins that do that. It is WordPress natively that's serving the different thumbnail versions to different devices. Hope that clears that one up, Ethan. That's a great question. Jessno, what are some of your top 3 paid and free WordPress themes? Well, I don't use free WordPress themes. I always use paid ones because I think you're paying for the quality of the design, the continued updates as well. So what are my top 3? GeneratePress is one that I use a lot, or have used a lot in the past. And Astra, I've used Astra a few times, but yeah, I'm not so keen on Astra nowadays because I'm using more page builders for my work. So I use Beaver Builder as my main page builder. And if you buy the Beaver Builder Pro, it comes with a Beaver Themer, which is a lightweight skeleton theme. I mean, it's got nothing. It's just got your basic structure. And then you use a page builder to build out your content. So yeah, Beaver Builder with Beaver Themer is my go-to at the moment. However, I would fall back on GeneratePress if the client didn't want to go down the skeleton route for that one. And Astra at a push. So those are my three. Ethan, yeah, no worries. I'm glad we cleared that one up. Okay, I think that's all the questions. Next week, I am doing a security talk. So just basically talking about security and passwords, how that works with WordPress, and what sort of tools you can use to manage your passwords, and what sort of expectations about creating different passwords that you can use. So hopefully that'll be a good little security one, because I know password is kind of a key thing. There's always people out there and bots out there trying to hack into your website. Oh, I've got another question here from John. Have you used plugins to convert a WordPress page or theme to HTML for speed, especially on landing pages? Not specifically a plugin to do that, John, but I would be looking at the caching plugin to do that. So definitely things like WP Rocket. You can specify not only exceptions, but you can specify what pages as well that you really want cached. So that would be one that I would look at, WP Rocket. W3 Total Cache as well. Well, I don't think you can specify a particular page that you want cached. You can certainly optimize it for all the different files that are loading in for the CSS and the JavaScript, and for minification as well. And it gives you an order as well. So that some themes, they don't like minification because of the particular order in the cascading style sheet or JavaScript. So with W3 Total Cache, you can actually specify the order in which those things get done, which is quite nice. Yeah. So thanks, John. Julia, no problem. Circa from Mike. Hey, thanks, Mike. Alan, yep, I've waffled on a lot more than I normally do today. It was a lot. And Joey, thanks. So guys, if you have any ideas for some more quickies, fill out the form. It's in the comments below the video for there. And that'd be great to get some extra comments. That's me. So connect with me on LinkedIn or Instagram or Twitter. And yeah, thanks very much for tuning in. And I will speak to you guys next week. Thank you.